Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan. We are going to be reviewing Week 1, the first Sunday of the NFL season. Keenan, it was like Christmas to me. Yesterday was everything I wanted it to be. I mean, we didn't have a particularly crazy Sunday. Um, Really, if
No.
anything, it was one of the more boring opening weekends I can remember. But not
A lot to still
a
talk
lot to still
about.
talk about. Not boring in the sense of, I mean, there was action all around, but boring in the, you got low scoring games, not a ton of upsets, not a lot of craziness, but I mean, obviously, we're coming off the Sunday night smackdown the Cowboys laid on the Giants. I have a lot of thoughts. Thursday,
Yeah.
funny enough, I don't know about you, but the Thursday night game, the Chiefs
Yep.
and Lions, that feels like it was a full 2 weeks ago. Like that doesn't even seem like it occurred
I
three
don't,
days prior to the Sunday game. So
I'm glad I wrote stuff down for it because like I mentally like I do remember it, but I don't remember it at the same time. Like you have to think. There's one game tonight. There's one game on Sunday. There are Thursday. There's 14 other games in just I guess 8 hour period, 9 hour or 9-10 hour period. So it's like so many games to just digest. So you're thinking about, oh my god, this, and then you're like, wait a second, oh yeah, the Lions played the Chiefs and the Lions won. Okay,
it dead feels like
yeah, no, that
2 weeks
was.
ago, and I don't know why, but
It really does. It does not feel like it happened 4 days ago.
so where would you like to start? We
But
got a lot to discuss. Do you want to start fresh off of Sunday night and then work ourselves backwards? Let's do that. Let's do that.
yeah,
That's the freshest.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Go ahead. Start it off. What do you think? What do you think about
So,
the beatdown we saw last night?
so I'm gonna tie a couple things into it because all of it comes together.
Okay.
My fantasy day yesterday wasn't great.
Mm.
So, in 2 of my 3 leagues, I'm probably going to win, so that's good. My fantasy betting, I did a 3-team parlay. 2 of the 3 teams won. I bet the Steelers 2.5 plus 2.5. That was garbage.
Wait. What do you mean fantasy betting?
Like daily fantasy, like I do,
Gotcha.
like DraftKings, FanDuel.
So okay,
And,
like
yeah,
player fan. I got you.
Yeah, like player fantasy. Yeah, I did that and didn't go well. Didn't go well. So, but the reason why I'm bringing that up because I did one real quick for the night, and I got Dallas's defense, Tony Pollard, Saquon, and Brandon Cooks from that game. And by golly, did Dallas's defense deliver? Oh boy! So it's going from yesterday to today. So like obviously, what tonight's game I could go anywhere, and then when max of like 200, it was a really small one. But Dallas's defense, this might sound like a little bit out there, and I'm going to say it. It's not right now, and it's not. It just has the makings and the potential to be like a top 5 team defense of the century.
Of the century?
It has of the century. So from 2000 Ravens, 2002 Bucks, 2005 Bears, 2013 Steelers, 2015 Broncos. I think underratedly, but you won't really see it as much in lists. The 2014 Patriots defense was disgusting, especially towards the second half of the season. We got Revis, Browner, that whole entire front. That one, there's a couple other defenses in there that people want to make the argument, like 08 Steelers was really good too. But I'm not saying but they have all the makings. They have the superstar in Micah Parsons. You've got 2 great corners. You got Diggs, who he's been much better about getting burnt. And then you got Stephon Gilmore, who just 3 years back won Defensive Player of the Year. And he's still not like done. He's still very good. You've got Lawrence, who has become a man possessed. He got that $100 million contract. Was bad. Then Micah came and it like rebirthed him. He's now a beautiful run stopper. Leighton Vander Esch, still good. Like this defense really, the only holes would be at like the linebacker position. They've got some younger guys there. The front's amazing. They've got depth. And then the secondary is very good. They were even missing, I think, Devon Wilson because Malik Hooker played last night for them too. So that defense has that potential. Will they get there? I don't know. I'm not projecting that they're getting there. I'm just saying they have that kind of potential on that defense, especially if Michael Parsons keeps going in the right trajectory as he is. The offense, I don't really know what to make of it because there's not really much to make of it. They got spotted 14. They didn't have to do much to win the game. They essentially could have scored 0 points and they would have won the game. So it's the offense. It's hard to judge. The Giants are a decent team defensively. They're nothing great. We'll see more next week when they play the Jets. But that defense is really the biggest takeaway, of course. But you go on.
I'll start with the fantasy tip of it because
Yep.
first off, let me say I'm 1-0 in all 3 leagues that I'm in.
Good for you.
But the big reason I am 3-0 is because of that defense. I probably would have been 2-1 going into today in the league with you, the League of Dysfunction.
I've been 1-2.
I was down about 26 points, I want to say, going into that matchup with Joe. And I thought, I was already bullish on not only the defense, but this matchup in general. I think I picked Dallas to win by 10. So I figured there'd be some turnovers.
Yep.
So it was definitely going to be some sacks. So I was expecting to at least make it interesting. And by the end of the first quarter, I was already ahead on the scoreboard due to their defense. So they got me the win. It's exactly why I drafted them, obviously. So, pretty happy about all that.
Yeah.
Now, all century, I mean, look, I'll say this. When you're bringing up defenses, 2 that came to mind. One we brought up last week, the Legion of Boom. And well as their division rival at the time, the Niners had an incredible defense at that time, especially their front 7 was incredible. They had a good secondary, but they were really bolstered by their front 7, who was, just a powerful, hard-hitting, smash mouth football type of team.
That was back, yeah.
So you're right. This does have all world makings for sure, especially with the talent they have at corner on top of Micah. And you're right. Micah kind of sets the tone with that. They definitely have an athletic defense, but I would also say, did last night surprise me? No. I mean, we saw what the Giants looked like last year against an upper echelon team. Now they start off this year against a top 3 team in the NFC, a top 5 team in the league, and they got exposed. And you know what? Like you said, the offense got spotted 14 points, but that defense is talented enough to when they're up 14, they can just say, fuck everything else. We got enough talent back there. We're going to rush for and good night. And the Giants' offensive line is not good enough to where they can compete with that. Props to Daniel Jones for playing the entire night, but they just do not have the talent all around. Now, they actually ran the ball well on Dallas last night. They ran over 100 yards.
I was going to say, that was the Bucs defense a couple years back was the same way when they got up, especially when they won the Super Bowl. When they got up and you got Shaq Barrett coming around, you had JPP coming around the edge, that's when those corners they were very good reaction corners. The fact of the matter is they did poorly in coverage when you had a clean pocket and things like that, which is why they had holes. They lost to the Rams because of it, but especially that Todd Bowles defense.
They had pure talent.
That Todd Bowles defense, when a turnover against them and they got up 7, it was like almost good night from there. And it was the same thing with that Cowboys defense, and you'll see it. When you have a certain amount of like firepower on defense like that, the second you get down 10, and you can just say, Micah, go. Lawrence, go. Diggs, you can jump routes. It can get good night.
They
become good night.
They very much have a traditional. They are about as explosive of a defense you can have.
Yes.
They have quality linebackers, but their corners and Micah, that's just going to be, like you said, if they're up 7 against a good team, it's going to be an advantage. Now it's all comes down to like how Dak and that offense is playing. Like you said, we couldn't really go off much because it was such an easy night for them. It was definitely a varsity versus JV night for them.
First freshman night.
Yeah, right.
That was even JV.
So, I mean, I don't know. I will say the little we saw of the offense, it looked efficient. I thought Dak looked efficient. I thought that decision-making was good. But, again, this Giants team, they did make the playoffs. But a lot of it was because, and we'll talk about it with other teams, steal wins early. The Patriots, we'll talk about them in a second. They could have stole a win. Could have stole a win against
Yep.
Philly. Then this Miami game in week 2 doesn't mean as much, right? If you lose. Now if you go down, same with Cincy. Cincy goes down 0-2 to Baltimore. It's a different season. I think, if I remember correctly, the Giants were 3-1 in their first 4, or maybe even 4-0.
I think they started 6-0.
Right,
the Giants
right.
last year. I think they because that's what Saquon was like in early MVP conversation talks, because the Giants were really good to start off, and then they just they didn't pan out, obviously.
So I mean,
afterwards, or like 6-1, I think.
Sure. Either way, who knows if anything will come of it? But I mean, take the Buccaneers yesterday. I think a lot of people would have picked them to lose. They steal one against the Vikings. Who knows what happens if they start 2-3-0? It's very.
They can sneak around and win the division. The division's not super tough, so
I don't expect it per se, but I mean that's just how it goes in the NFL. Like, where 1 week adds up to the next, to the next, to the next, and it becomes intoxicating. Winning becomes intoxicating in this league, and to a degree, losing can too. Your season and your morale and how you feel about your head coach can turn week to week. Especially
big week for Pittsburgh next week. When we're talking about things like that, like you lose that big, and then you then get another clunker against the Browns, and you start 0-2. It's Kenny Pickett doesn't have 2 good games. You start hearing things in the media, which I understand, like, can't always be like that. But it happens with people. Like, you hear things, you can get in your head a little bit. Obviously, Mike Tomlin's a great coach, but it's really like the start of the season. Obviously, it's always not how you start, it's how you finish. But the start of the season matters so much, because if you get, like, the Bengals start off like 1-3, even if they rattle off like 5 in a row, they're still only 6-3. It's different than being 8-1. Like, your positioning,
I would say,
and obviously it's how you finish. But like, getting to a good start's always a good thing.
I would say it's very much division dependent. Because you look at the Jags and the Lions of last year, where neither had the greatest start, and it didn't really matter. Now, like you said, Keenan, like you said, the AFC North, the AFC East, you can't do that. We've already seen, and we'll see more tonight with the Jets and the Bills, but you're not going to be able to do that in the AFC North. So, in the Patriots and the Bengals and the Steelers, will all have division games next week, and had high expectations. I don't know about necessarily high expectations, but at least playoff expectations in the case of the Steelers and Pats.
Yeah.
It's almost a must-win game. You have 16 full games after that, sure. But it's almost a must-win game for those division games. Especially, I would say especially for the Bengals, and especially for the Pats.
Well, the Bengals would be 0-2 in the division too, which would be a terrible start.
Exactly. So for them especially, it's a must-win game, and it's going to be tough. They didn't play their starters really at all in the preseason. And you saw, Burrow didn't even get to 100 yards yesterday. The Ravens defense will be a little bit better to throw on. There's more resistance on the Ravens, but it's still a divisional game, and you don't know what the weather's going to be like. You have no idea. If it's another rainy day, who knows? If it's another windy day, who the hell knows? Because we do know the Ravens are equipped to run the ball. But, we'll talk about all that more so on Thursday when we do our game picks. But, that's the beauty of the NFL. Each week leads into the other. You'll have questions each week about every single team, and you have them answered week to week.
Yeah.
I actually, Keenan, I want to merge into the game you mentioned with the Steelers and Niners, because it was very much reminiscent of last night's game with the Cowboys and Giants. I thought the Niners, again, looked like a varsity versus JV team. I think the Steelers, I'll say this about both the Steelers and the Giants, I think they will both definitely improve throughout the year. I think they're going to be.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of those teams are going to be 5-win teams, 6-win teams. I think they'll be middle of the pack.
No, I couldn't imagine them being.
But even if they don't make the playoffs, which I don't expect the Giants to, the Steelers were on my bubble. I do think they'll be competitive and they're going to be in these games. Now, yesterday though, a lot of people had that as one of the games of the week. Niners and Steelers. I certainly thought. I think I picked the Steelers to win. I thought Purdy was going to be rusty. That
Same.
was my big thing. Was overall, I think the team will look good, but I think Purdy will be a little rusty. It was
Yep.
business as usual. They looked like they were fresh off the divisional round from last year. Obviously, Purdy gets hurt in the NFC Championship, but they looked exactly like last season, explosive on both ends of the ball. My biggest takeaway from that game overall was just how shaky Pickett looked. He was just missing open
Mm-hmm.
guys left and right in situations. Like, look, you said, Keenan, like how important the beginning of the year is, and I
Yeah.
said, like I've said this multiple times. I think the first 4 to 6 weeks, really 4 to 5 weeks, are similar to preseason. But when it's a
Yeah.
matchup like the Niners and the Steelers, and people are looking at the Steelers like the AFC version of the Lions, who just like kind of,
Mm-hmm.
showed some promise and they got talent and they got coaching,
Yep.
that's almost kind of like a playoff game. Like similar to the games they put on opening night in the NBA. Like you got Warriors, Lakers. Yeah, it means nothing out of 82, but you can kind of gather something from that one game. Like what's going to be an Achilles heel for said team, or you know what I mean? You can kind of
And
gather a little bit
you
from that week one.
mentality too.
Exactly.
Like one that just reminds me of it was Warriors 2016. I know I referenced that team, but like they just came out like we are angry that people don't think we were supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
champions. And you saw obviously throughout the year they went 73-9, but like game 1 Steph had 40. It was like why are you doubting us? So like it's just you see games like that where it's like okay, no, this matters
And
to
that's
us.
that's how
And
the Niners came
having
out.
the 49.
It's exactly how the Niners
Yes,
came out.
the Niners came out like no, like the reason why we lost last year is because Purdy went out and we had to go down to our wide receiver almost at QB. Like we would have won without if we had Purdy. Like that's their mentality going into week 1 and against very good Steelers defense on the road in a tough place to play, and they moonwalked on them. That's a good, regardless of it being week 1. That's a good win. That's
It's
a
a
really good
great win.
win.
It's an incredible win for them, given the fact that it was a
Yep,
blowout. They were getting whatever they wanted on offense. It seemed like they were getting eight. It
McCaffrey's.
seemed like they were getting 8 to 12 yards whenever they wanted. And the
Mm-hmm.
Steelers seem soft, which is crazy because you don't expect that from a Mike Tomlin team. And again, Pickett was my biggest takeaway because I'm like, okay, I know he's gonna improve, and I know he's
Yeah.
gonna like I always say this: teams will tell you what they think, right? Like they made him captain, they didn't go out and get a veteran, so clearly they think
Mm-hmm.
something of him. But there was moments there down 2 touchdowns early in the first half where he had open guys. And again, you mentioned they're at home.
System.
I don't think it was a particularly windy day. It was a sunny day in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh was actually one of the better weather places.
Even elements, everything even really. And he was just missing guys. He was the weak link to me out of that whole team. TJ
Mm-hmm.
Watt had a couple sacks. The defense, you know, showed some resistance here and there, showed some edge when they needed to make stops. They did it a couple times, but you can't ask your defense to keep going out there and performing when offense is getting three and outs. And
Yep.
I don't know. I thought it was disappointing for Pickett. We can see in 5 or 6 weeks, but I mean, him even more so than Daniel Jones came and stuck out to me yesterday as just
Mm-hmm.
as inadequate quarterbacks. And Daniel Jones didn't put up a point, and Pickett even actually led them on one touchdown drive. But I don't know. I thought it was
Daniel
interesting.
Jones is well. Cause here's the thing with me personally. Daniel Jones doesn't have high expectations for me. I kind of already know what I'm gonna get. What I hope from Daniel Jones is make the easy throws, use your legs, don't turn the ball over. Pickett, you don't really know yet. Like, not that I don't think he has like top 5 quarterback potential or anything, but like, can he get to that Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott-ish style like range of quarterback, or is he gonna be more of kind of like what Baker was? Like maybe have a good year or two here or there, but maybe a journeyman, maybe like what kind of quarterback is he gonna be? So you still have questions on him. So you kind of and whatever obviously your feelings going in, he's a rookie, so you're like you have hope that he's gonna be like maybe take that step. And obviously it's week 1, and it's like everyone's biggest things to overreact to week 1.
Sure.
Not that we are right this moment. We're just talking, but like everyone's biggest things to overreact to week 1. I mean, we could say right now that the Steelers are going to be terrible and maybe they win the next 5, and we look back like, why did we say that? So, but you're right. Pickett was one of those things where it's like Not a good start. You have now the Browns coming off a great win on Monday night. Let's see what goes on.
Yeah, I think Tomlin will have them ready to play.
Oh
And
yeah.
again, I think both Pickett, and I'm going to relate it back to the Giants. I think Daniel Jones and the Giants will improve. Uh,
Yep.
it's just Pickett did not look as good as he did last season. And down the stretch, you know, he looked at least adequate. You know what I mean? It looked like he could at least
Yeah.
pass the ball, move in the pocket. And, yesterday against a very good team with this, again, Steelers have some expectations, at least for the playoffs. He couldn't even
Mm-hmm.
get them to 2 touchdowns. Just something that stuck out to
Yeah. All right. So, in a moment, I want to go through maybe like our 5 biggest takeaways from week 1. We can go individual players or whatever, and then maybe questions going into week 2 that have kind of gathered just because it's a little bit of on both sides. But we wouldn't be the Warner Brothas podcast if we didn't talk about New England. So let's talk about it. We're just not us if we're not talking about.
Well, look, I'd say the first 2 games we talked about, those are 2 of my biggest takeaways. One being how the Steelers didn't show up, the other one being the Dallas defense, and this would be my third right here. And I can relate it back to both games. How Mac Jones did against this Philly defense and this team in general showed me a lot. I was incredibly impressed with Mac Jones yesterday. That was probably his best game as a pro, despite that pick 6. Even more so incredible.
It's up there.
I was incredibly impressed with this defense as well. I had high expectations with this defense. But if you told me Philly, granted, again, it's week 1, but if you told me that was going to be their biggest test offensively, just because of how much Philly can chew up the clock, just how challenging they can be from whether it's a read option, whether it's a standard handoff, whether it's an RPO, you just don't know what's coming out of those 3.
Yeah.
And Hurts control of that offense. And they were down 2 scores and were able to very much limit Jalen Hurts in that offense.
Yep.
I was impressed with everything I saw. Now, what I was not impressed with and what stuck out to me the most, and I wish Coach Belichick would take more heat for this, was being down 8, being, I believe, inside the 15 on a 4th and short.
Mm-hmm.
And why not just take the points there? It was Tom Brady day. I don't want to say Mac looked like Tom Brady, but that offense really did look like the old offense. As far as the timing, as far as the usage of the tight ends, as far as just the synergy they had, especially when they went no huddle. He was in such a rhythm.
That's the one.
I don't. Sorry to cut you off. I just don't understand why we didn't take the points there, because we still ended up. I think there was another play after that, another possession where we went for it on 4th in the middle of the field, and we could have punted, and we didn't.
Yeah.
And we still held up on it. We gave the Eagles half a field, and we still stopped them on downs, got the ball back, and we're almost in position to tie the game. Now, if we just kick the field goal there, we're not even in that position. So I just
you have to get 15 more yards or 10 more yards really, and then kick a field goal, and that's a game.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. So I was disappointed with Belichick in that regard, especially with, like I said, we could have stole that game, and then the divisional game in week 2 doesn't matter as much. Not saying that I'm expecting to lose that game, but I mean clearly as we saw yesterday, that's gonna be a tough game in Miami. I'm gonna eat a ton of crow on Tua. Because, I mean, look, he fucking balled out yesterday. 466 yards. Don't even get me started on Tyreek Hill. That game, I think our defense is going to be able to compete, and we'll talk about it more on Thursday. I think it'll be a close game, but I just thought I thought we put ourselves in a bad position by not taking those points and not giving Mac an easier last drive. Because, again, that could have been a field goal game-winning drive at the end there. Instead, we were driving for a touchdown. It just didn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was amateur coaching on Belichick's part.
I agree. I think that's trying to be almost too nuanced in a sense. Like, a lot of people love to go for it on 4th down, and it's good to go in certain situations. It was
incredibly greedy.
It's good to go in certain situations, but 3 points is better than 0. And obviously, we were moving the ball on Philly pretty well, especially in the second half, but that doesn't mean we're not Mahomes. We don't have the Chiefs offense. I'm going to put the ball in Mahomes' hands and let him go. I'm going to put the ball in Burrow's hands and let him go. Mac clearly isn't that. Let's and we weren't clicking on those kind of cylinders to where it's like, take the points, be smart, and make Mac not have to do as much. Let him just kind of help him out because he's not at that level
Not only
yet.
that, it's not
Like when you get
that's not even my thing is if it was at the 45 or the 40, fine, go ahead.
well, yeah, when you're out of field goal range, sure.
They're at the 15 on 4th-3. That was just being greedy. Even teams with Burrow and Mahomes, they're taking that. Like for me, that was a Brandon Staley move from Belichick. I just don't understand it. Or Dan Campbell move, which we see it pays
Fair
off
enough.
sometimes, but that's more so where I was looking at it. Because I mean, I think we had the most total offense out of everybody on Sunday. There might have been there might have been a team or two.
I think the Dolphins probably had more.
Yeah, the Dolphins. Sorry, the Dolphins, of course. But I think we might have been second. If not, we were sure.
You know, we were up there.
On a
yes,
good aggressive Eagles defense, and our line held up great. So I don't know.
So the big thing for me was we only allowed one offensive touchdown.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This defense has special written all over it.
Versatile.
Like when the game started off and it was 16-0, I was literally looking like, man, Caleb Lanu messaged me when it was 16-0. Was like, is it just time to tank for Caleb Williams? and I was like, you know what? They just decided, like, it just how it came out, I was just like deflated. And then the defense was like, no, we've got it. And then the offense started to move a bit. And I was like, okay, Kendrick Bourne's a real player in this offense. I like Kendrick Bourne. He has a good synergy with Mac. Ramondre, I felt like they needed to use more. Like, he got used in the second half, but like first half, he just wasn't. I don't feel like he was utilized to the potential that he should have been. I know Bill likes to do that with backs, where
he was also sick going into the game.
Oh, what? That's okay. That makes him. Yeah, I knew he did, but I didn't know if it would hinder him that much. But Mac, I was gonna say, Bill also likes to do that, where he kind of gives like a first half to this person, second half to this person. He used to do that with like Dion Lewis and LeGarrette Blount. He used to do that all the time. So, but regardless, the offense, it's definitely much better than obviously it was last year, and that defense is really good, holding the Eagles to 7 to 18 points. Obviously, they got the pick 6, so that's where you get the other 7 to get to 25. But that defense holding the Eagles to 18, I'll take that every week. I will take that every single week. And we're going to see how real this Miami offense is, and we're going to see how real this Patriots defense is this coming week. Like, I think both of them are real. I think both of them are real, but I'm just like, how it's going to be like a big, nice clash to see, like, oh, is Tua really now that? Yeah, obviously, we know Tyreek Hill is that. He's been doing that for the last 6 years now. And then, obviously, the Bills just looking at the Patriots is like, okay, their defense is in Super Bowl form right now. Like, they looked it on Sunday, but I'm really eager to see that. And I'm eager to see what Mac can do with Tua. Like, going back and forth, because the Dolphins probably are going to put up points, I'm assuming. Unless Bill has that good of a game plan against them. But they're going to put up points. It's going to put pressure on Mac. It's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that other quarterback kind of pressure, especially not that it really matters, but both of them being from Bama, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, there's a little something there.
Plays 2 Bama quarterbacks the first 2 weeks, which is
true.
All teammates.
All
teammates.
I'll say this, because again, we'll talk more about that game later on this week, but
yeah,
the 2 things really that stuck out to me. Well, I'll say this I'm going to contradict myself. I am going to talk about the Miami game a little bit. I was more concerned with this style of offense, the Eagles, how versatile they are on offense. I was more concerned about that game than a fun and gun type of Dolphins team. Because Belichick's kind of, like even the Mahomes Chiefs, Belichick's kind of put a counter to that. Now, Tyreek Hill's always going to get one against Belichick, it seems like. It seems like he'll keep him in check for 98% of the game, and that 2% is going to be one for a touchdown and one for, 40-yard game that puts you in field goal position or something like
It
that.
felt like always every big big time receiver like that got like one.
Literally
like
one.
Odell got one. Tyreek got one. Like a lot of receivers. It seems to be like the secondary style receivers that go off. Like a Devontae Smith. Like could go like AJ Brown, you hold to like 45 or like 60 yards and a touchdown, and then Devontae goes for like 115. It always seems like it's the second guy if someone goes off on us that it's them, not usually the superstar. But sometimes it is because obviously they're superstars for a reason. So you're not going to do great every single week, but it all depends.
Yeah, I say that to say I'm not as concerned going into this next game as I was compared to the Eagles. And then next, the offensive line.
I was going to say that's one of my biggest questions, but going in, so we're kind of already tackling some of the biggest takeaways and questions really already. But
sure.
Go on with what you're saying.
Sure. Yeah, I was just gonna say the O-line I was very impressed with because that was a lot of the Patriots media biggest questions and biggest negatives coming out of the preseason was how their offensive line performed, and Mac really wasn't touched all that much. Like they held up very well, even against the blitz. They held up well. So it's all positive signs. Like the Pats look like all the makings of a good team. Again, it's week 1, but again, you compare that to the Steelers and Giants, who also have light expectations, albeit expectations. Look how they perform against the elites, and then look how
same level of teams too.
Exactly. Those are
Eagles, Cowboys, the 49ers. Those are your 3 best teams in the NFC.
You could argue
in whatever order, maybe.
And you could argue those are the 3 best teams in the NFL. So
you could make that argument. The NFC is top heavy.
Yeah.
So obviously, we were talking about the Lions game and the Chiefs game feeling miles away, weeks away. One thing I did want to mention as one of my takeaways from that was because of the NFC being so top heavy, like I think the Lions might be fringe contenders. Because I feel like once you get to the divisional round, you have to be in the fringe contender conversation because you're 2 games away from being in the Super Bowl. I mean, like obviously they're not better than Dallas, they're not better than Philly, they're not better than the 49ers. But after that, I think there is a crop of like 4 or 5 teams, and I think they definitely could be at the top of that crop. And I already put them with Seattle, I'd put them with Green Bay. Atlanta's being interesting. I like the way they played. You'd obviously have to look at. That's really it because the Saints game that was garbage. The Rams Seahawks, I don't know what that was. What the hell happened in that game? Division game, I guess.
I do want to say to all those.
I don't know, but shout outs to the Rams.
To all those games you mentioned, I wouldn't call the Saints-Titans game necessarily garbage by any means. That looked like 2 physical defenses getting after it. To me, I'm not a fan of Dennis Allen by any means as a head coach, but I mean, those were 2 physical.
I've never been a Tannehill guy.
Neither have I. And Tannehill didn't play well. That's gonna be Titans' biggest question throughout this whole season is what the hell was Ryan Tannehill? Is he gonna be a bridge? Or
that's more so.
But
their offenses are questions.
They are, and the Saints have talent on their offense, but both of those defenses can flat out play and were physical yesterday. Yeah. That was one of the more intriguing games to me because Titans do have talent.
They're going to be
else.
Tough games.
Titans got talent everywhere else.
They're going to be tough.
Be well coached.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. There's that. Another game that was like another game that was a little weird. It's like the Raiders and Broncos. I guess Denver's still at that 16-point mark. Russ looked fine
in the first half.
He's 27 of 34, but only 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's not pushing the ball down the field. He looked fine. And he had some drives, he made some plays, so you're like, okay, this looks kind of like the old Russ, but That's a game you have. I mean, I get it's a division game. Jimmy played well. They obviously have talent on that offense. Jacoby Myers had a very good game. You obviously have Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs. That offensive line's all right. But like, I don't know. If you're the Broncos, especially after the offseason you've got Sean Payton, you've got Russell Wilson supposed to have this resurgence. Javonte Williams is back. You got Samaje Perine, who's a very good secondary back, really good hands, also can run a little bit. You've got Cortland Sutton. I understand Jerry Jeudy didn't play, and you don't have Tim Patrick, so the receiving weapons wasn't fully there. But I feel like there's still a game. Like, you got to come out with that one, especially as we were talking with the Bengals. We were talking with the Patriots even a little bit. Like, you don't always get to afford to have those kind of losses in games where you definitely – the Bengals more so than the Patriots. The Patriots could have stole one. The Bengals going into that, you think that they need that kind of game more so. The Broncos do not have any room for error in this division. Obviously, you have the Chiefs and the Chargers who are both 0-1, which is helpful to them, but you don't really have too much room for error, especially with Mahomes and Herbert looking at them.
You would think that, but then again, you just really don't know. I mean, last year the AFC West did not play out how we thought. I think the Chiefs have major questions in their receiving core. The Chargers apparently are the same old Chargers, judging by yesterday. Very winnable game. This didn't happen. Couldn't even get into field goal range. And yeah, that Broncos-Raiders game was a really weird game. They start off with the onside kick. Russ looks good in the first half. They very much seemed to go game manager style with him. They focused on the run a lot in that offense, which is good. Like, Russ thrives in that, in a West Coast type of offense. We saw him roll out more, this and that, not in the pocket as much. Got to give the Raiders on the other side credit too. Jimmy G played a very good game. He had one pick, 2 touchdowns though. Raiders have a good amount of offensive talent. They do have Devontae Adams. They do got my boy Jacoby Myers. They do got Josh Jacobs. So I mean, if Jimmy can play how he did yesterday, they are going to be a competitive team. And I think this division, I think that's how I had it shaping up, is to be a competitive division. What we'll see from Russ, that all kind of depends. The onside kick makes me wonder if that's, you could call it gutsy. Sean Payton does have a history of that, especially in the Super Bowl, right off the second half with that against the Colts. But to start your season with it, I don't know if that's like, fuck yeah, we're going for it, or I have no confidence in this team at all to come back from even 3-0. We're just going to try to steal the ball right now. And they did recover it, but they had a false start, I believe, on the kicker.
Yeah, but it was he touched it within 10.
Oh, okay.
So he didn't go 10, so he touched it within 10. But you're right. You'll see that the question to that answer will happen or be answered. That question will be answered. I wish I could speak in 4 weeks. You'll see how he coaches these next 3 or 4 weeks. And if he's coaching kind of gutsy, has faith in Russ, faith in the team, you're going to be like, okay, no, he was just trying to go for it. He just really wanted to start off the season like that. But if you look and he's tentative all over everywhere, it's going to be like, well, maybe he was we need every sparking thing we can get with this roster. So, yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. 2 teams that I did want to speak on more, and they play next week, and I think this is one of my games of the week, and it's kind of more of a low-key one, and it's Green Bay Atlanta.
It's going to be a good game.
I think the way Atlanta used Bijan and Tyler Algier, they realized, Desmond Ridder really, we need to make this as simplistic as possible for him. He only had 115 yards and a touchdown, but the way they use Bijan he is electric. Tyler Algier can run. He's a very downhill runner, so he's great there too. You kind of got thunder and lightning-ish kind of style there, not as much because Tyler Algier is not that kind of bruiser. But they're going to be in every game because that offensive line's really good. They're going to slow the pace down, and that defense does have talent over at different parts of the defense. So that they're going to be nice. And then Green Bay's defense is top 5-ish. They're around that top 5. They've got think Dallas had 36 pressures last week on the quarterback. Green Bay had 35. Rashawn Gary gets to the quarterback as quickly and as well as 95% of the league, honestly. Like, he is a man. They have Jair Alexander, who's a top 5 corner still. Like, their defense has all of the pieces for it. In that offense, if they have an Aaron Jones-centric offense, they're going to be a tough team to beat week in and week out. Just Jordan Love needs to limit the mistakes. We'll see how he progresses forward. But he looked poised. 3 touchdowns, no picks in the first game. You can't really ask for more from that team. So I think they showed. I mean, obviously they played the Bears, and both of you and I both don't have the Bears that great, but still a divisional game. Jordan Love's first start as the guy. It was good to see him perform well, and that defense and that team kind of play the Matt LaFleur kind of style that he wants to play in full. I think that game's going to be really good this coming week.
Yeah, all week the Bears were favored, and I never understood it, not for 1 second. I still don't think Fields is any sort of threat with his arm.
No.
You know, he can do it with
his legs are electric.
Yeah, he can do it with his legs. He's absolutely an electric quarterback, but you know, I don't understand any sort of Bears expectations as far as Fields, at least for this year. I mean, we'll see next year what his arm can be, but man, they just don't trust him. And you know, Ritter, as far as the Falcons go, I mean, I think Ritter, like how you describe Jimmy G, I think that's what Ritter is. Like, they literally, like, Ritter, if you can hit Kyle Pitts every once in a while, like, cool. Like, we're going to hand it off. That's why, like, sure, you guys clown my Algier pick, especially for where I took them, but I really feel like they're both going to get a ton of carries each week, whether it's touches. I mean, you saw Bijan get a screen for his first touchdown. Like, I think they'll use them both like that. You know, I think it's going to be incredibly focused on those two backs. Obviously Bijan, but I don't see Ritter doing anything.
Thing. I don't even think. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say I don't see Ritter doing anything. Like, same analogy I use with Trubisky and other quarterbacks. Can you see that guy in a December game when you're down 10 and you need something? You're against the Saints down 10 at the Superdome. Is he really gonna lead you? No, fuck no. They show you he can't. But every way they operate the offense, they're like,
Bijan's gonna lead you.
Right? It's gonna give direct snaps.
By that point, Bijan's leading you.
Direct snaps to Bijan, and no, like that's Ritter can't, and Fields can with his legs, but that's about it.
And that's the same thing about Daniel Jones. That's literally like Dayball has been telling you, like, Daniel Jones has been like bootlegs and a couple throws here and there. Like, he had a big win against the Packers last year late. Obviously the playoff game. But, like, there's been a couple games, but, like, threw, like, 15 touchdowns. He didn't throw much.
No.
He just, like, what they basically said from him is, hey, don't turn the ball over. Make the easy throw. We're running it through Saquon. What they're going to try to do with Desmond Ritter is exactly what they did with Daniel Jones last year.
I'll say this.
Throw it to Pitts. Throw it to Drake London. Give the ball to Bijan and Tyler Algier and get out of the way.
I'll say this about Daniel Jones. I at least can picture and have probably at least seen him come back from 10 down. Like, we've at least seen Daniel Jones at least. I mean, I don't know if I agree with a $40 million contract, but he's at least got a little more ability than Ritter. Ritter, honestly, is just... Ritter's
absolutely.
Literally,
he's got more ability.
He's a body. Daniel Jones, let's say he gets cut by the Giants, he's at least going to go compete for a starting job somewhere, like Baker Mayfield. Desmond Ritter is a body. You could literally, like, you could have a robot back there taking snaps, just handing off to Bijan, handing off to Algier. That's what Ritter is to me.
Listen,
but
I hope he proves us wrong, because I don't even, like, disagree with you. But, like, I mean, in his career, he's 3 touchdowns to no picks, 66% completion, 823 yards in, like, 3 games.
Manager, if I've ever seen one.
That's I mean, that sounds like him. I mean, if he does that all the time and just 1 touchdown, 150, 200 yard, he's great, because all that means is he's not messing it up.
I can't believe that.
And that offensive,
that's why
just not messing it up.
That's why I can't believe you took Pitts and was, like, happy about it in our fantasy draft, because I had Pitts last year and wanted to kill myself the entire season. Because I'm like,
I see.
no one
Here's
wanted
the
him
thing.
from me.
I think that Ritter can get 155-ish a game, 160. I think he can get to that. And I think Pitts can get you 60 and a touchdown. So I think I'm
Yeah, he might get a touchdown
I think
every
Pitts can
6
get you-
games. Pitts is not. We'll do it right now because
let's
do it right now. When is Pitts going to get his first score this year? You had to bet on it. You think it comes in week 2?
Week 3.
Week 3? I'm
Week
say
3.
week 5.
Yeah. I think week 3. Let me
Week
just go
3,
see who Atlanta's playing.
If it isn't week 3, then he's getting his next score in week 9.
Yeah, they play the Lions next week. Yep, week 3. Then they play the Jags and they play the Texans. So your week 5's against the Texans. Yeah, so I like Atlanta. I really do.
Here's the thing, though. If it's anything inside the 5, they're going to run the ball. They're giving it to Bijan or Algier. They won't.
Yeah. It's going to have to be like a 15-yarder.
They don't even trust them to do the rollout. I don't know. I'm just very, very, very interested to see where Kyle Pitts' career goes because I feel like he'd still warrant like a high round pick if he was like a trade.
He has to.
But because I've never heard a tight end as hyped up as him in my life coming out of the draft. And he was zero production to show for it.
I mean, year 1, he had a pretty decent year 1. He started off, I think, a little bad and then ended the year better. He only had 1 touchdown, but he had 1,000 yards. So it was like, you're like, okay, 1,000 yards for a tight end as a rookie. You're like, okay, that's good.
With Matt Ryan throwing to him, though, right?
Yes. So
human,
if I'm them, you've got to get yourself a QB. Like, you need to be in the market for one. Like, I don't know who you possibly can get, but you need to be in a market for a QB because this team, especially in the weaker NFC, when you're going down like tier-wise, obviously like the top is the top, but like after that, like it's up in the air. If you just get yourself even a Brock Purdy level quarterback, you can compete for like the divisional. And like that's all you can really ask for. Like if you can compete for the divisional round with the Lions, the Seahawks, the Packers, then that's all you can ask for. They're already, I think, going. I believe personally they're going to compete with them anyways. And the Saints. Let me not add the Saints in there. The Saints clearly have pieces. That defense is tough. So I'm interested on both like that game and the other game. I'm interested is Seattle Detroit going in. But I'll let you say anything before I go into that game.
I have no idea what to make out of Seattle. That's all I can really say. It's weird because Stafford carves them up yesterday. The Seahawks apparently can't fucking move the ball. Whatever. Which I kind of expected. There was a weird line on this game. Seahawks were favored by 5 when everybody thinks the Rams are going to be terrible. Right? So you're like, okay, why isn't that a full touchdown? Yeah. So that was some indication. And, I mean, we saw how the Rams and Seahawks played last year. They were always weirdly low-scoring, close games.
Mm-hmm.
And really, with all these bad teams, whether it's the Cardinals, whether it's the Bears, whoever, the Bucks, you expect week 1 for them to, like, throw some haymakers. And by and large, we saw that. The Rams, they just took it right to the Seahawks, and it makes me a little worried.
Yes.
I didn't have them going as deep as you and Tim, obviously, but all 3 of us had some sort of expectations. I thought that defense was at least going to have some fight in them, and they didn't seem to. But one thing about it, we forget how, Stafford looked a little injured last year, but not necessarily washed up. He had a serious back injury, and you could make the case.
That was more so what I was worried about.
You could make the case, Keenan, that Stafford really like walks back into being the best quarterback in the NFC. You can make that case. How long he'll hold up?
I would say Hurts and then him. I'd say Hurts, Dak, him personally. If you're going off, like if he walks into if he's back to like Stafford, I would say it'd be Hurts, and then him and Dak are competing.
Hurts is my MVP, but out of who has the most quarterback ability and complete as far as reading defenses, it's Stafford out of those 3 to me.
Oh yeah.
But I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean anybody would want Hurts. And Dak, we'll see. But I mean, Stafford's an immediate, 8-point upgrade to what they had at quarterback last year. So that'll be interesting through the first couple weeks. Because again, if the Rams could steal a couple wins here, especially if they win at Seattle next week, or I don't know if it's a home game, whatever. But or sorry, who the fuck they play? They just played Seattle right now. But if they can win week 2, they got.
Yeah, they play. Hold on, just like 2 seconds. They play the 49ers at home.
Great divisional game. But even then, if you go into that game and compete, and then who knows down the line, your season can just kind of flip. I don't necessarily expect that. I expect that if they do lose some games, they'll kind of go in the direction of tank. But you just never know. I certainly didn't expect them to win that game, and certainly by 17 points. So yeah, I don't know. I got some worries about the Seahawks.
I'm a little worried myself. Again, it's week 1. I'm not going to overreact. It's a divisional game. It was weird. So that's why this game against Detroit is something like I'm keying in on. Because even if they lose it, but they play a very on-brand Seattle game, I'm just going to chuck that up to, okay, that's a divisional game.
They should.
They'll play the Rams. They play the Rams weird.
They should at least.
Okay, I'm going to just let. Yeah, that's where you get worried. And especially because Detroit's defense isn't great. Aiden Hutchinson has definitely starred a superstarish potential. So that's where he was drafted number 1 overall for. You've got to be that. But so you have that kind of game changer. But outside of that, they don't have too many pieces. They've got a few, but they don't have too much. So it's going to be you should be able to move the ball on this Detroit team. So. And you should be a little bit more desperate. But the Rams, it's actually a huge win for the Rams. And the reason why, because obviously you're playing for the playoffs. Obviously every team, all 32, think they can make the playoffs week 1. So, in some capacity or another. But the Rams have the 49ers, the Eagles, and the Bengals in 3 of their next 4 weeks. With the Colts sprinkled in there. So, you've got 3 of the 6, 7 best teams in the league in the next couple weeks. So getting a win over a team that I believe is still better than them is definitely a great start to the season.
Real quick, because I do want to ask you about tonight's game, but I just cannot believe how many people are not talking about Burrow throwing for under 100 yards. I know the whole thing is don't overreact to week 1, but which obviously Burrow's elite. He just signed the biggest contract in NFL history. Deserves it.
Yeah.
But 82 yards. 82 yards in the divisional game, and no one's really batting an eye. Everyone's it's week 1. The Bengals start slow. But I'm if it was 182 yards, even then you'd be okay, that's not up to par. But he didn't even get to 85. He didn't get to 90. He didn't get to 100. That's Desmond Ridder type shit.
No, it really is. And he was 14 of 31, 82 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks.
The Browns manned them.
I went through his first his stats in week 1 for the first 4 years of his career. He has not been good week 1. And this comes off of he was a rookie, obviously, so your first game ever, he wasn't terrible, but your first game ever, coming off of a broken leg, coming off of your appendicitis where you weren't and then this year coming off the calf. He hasn't had a full training camp at all. So he comes in even rustier than other people come in. It's not an excuse because you still got to be ready to play. You're on the field. You got to play well. So not an excuse. It just gives it more context to it. He's 1-3, averages 16 points a game, 61% completion percentage for a guy who borders around 70. 4 touchdowns to 5 picks for a guy who's around that 2.5, 3 to 1. So, if that shows you anything about Joe Burrow week 1, he won 1 game and it was against the Minnesota Vikings year 2. But he's 82 to 31, which is about a 2.5 to 1 ratio, or a 2.75 to 1 ratio for a touchdown to interception. So him being at 0.8 in week 1, tough. So, it's definitely something that you think should be brought up a little bit more. I personally don't think it's a big deal, and I have Joe Burrow going into the season as MVP, and this one game doesn't deter me from it.
Sure.
And I think 2 years ago, Aaron Rodgers against the Saints had one touchdown to 3 picks, or had 3 picks. They lost 30. I know he had no touchdowns because they lost 38-3, and he still won MVP that year. I think that was the year he threw 45-ish touchdowns, 47 even, I think. So it's still one game, but at the same time, no, you're right. An all-time greatish talent like quarterback having 82 yards in a week, that's gotta be mentioned. That might be, for a quarterback of his caliber, that might be the worst opening week game from a quarterback ever.
It's up there.
From someone of that caliber.
I'm sure we could find some other ones up there, but that's got to be up there. You're correct.
Of that caliber, maybe. You have to think top 5 quarterbacks. I can't picture Brady, Rodgers, Breeze.
Also think of how the game was. Also think of how the game was in the 2000s and the 90s, where you could have these games off pure physicality.
Yeah, maybe. You might be able to find one, but 14-31 for 82 yards is a tough way to start the season. It is tough.
I do want to say this, though, Keenan. We are both 9-6 going into tonight's game. I picked the Bills. You picked the Jets.
Yep.
Tell me, what are your thoughts on it? What do you think is going to happen tonight? Do you think it's good? You had a high-scoring game. I had more of a low-scoring game. We do got to come up with a final bet for the overall win total. I think I won last year. Is that true?
You did.
Do you have any ideas? I guess I should have put more thought into it too, since I'm half of this. But maybe we'll come.
I really don't.
Come into Thursday. We'll talk about it Thursday then when we're making our picks.
We need to come into Thursday, prepare for it. We said that multiple times.
We did. Shit got away from us, I guess. But Thursday we will.
But this game, I feel, has. It's going to be on in about 15 minutes, but this game, I think, has the potential to be maybe the best game of the weekend. I mean, there's...
Better than Dolphins-Chargers.
I was about to say Dolphins-Chargers would be the best game of the weekend. There's been some obviously close games, but it's going to be tough to be better than that game, obviously, with Tua hitting the game winner to Tyreek, but it has that kind of potential. There's just so much more I mean, obviously, when you have big games, the storyline to it makes it a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. Obviously, going in, it's like, okay, Miami, Chargers, high-flying teams, and then you see a really great game from it. But this one, you've got Buffalo. Is there turmoil? Who's the best team in the AFC East? Is Aaron Rodgers in his first game? How are the Jets going to be? Are they going to... And so all of it's coming together, and I think that this game is going to be great. I do still have the Jets winning. I think I have them 30-27. Yep. I think this game is going to be a very good, fun game, and I think Rodgers is going to hit the ground running. Rodgers with a chip on his shoulder plays really well, especially regular season. I was going to say playoffs, it's been up and down a little bit, but regular season, Rodgers with a chip on his shoulder, he's won 2 of the last 3 MVPs. So he's definitely shown that when you put that kind of chip and kind of put something on his shoulder, he can come out and he's going to prove people wrong. So I think this game's going to be fun. I've still got the Jets.
I'm dubious of Rodgers and the Jets starting off so hot. I do think they'll eventually round into form, but I do not think it's going to be easy. We'll see. I mean, they got it at home. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be some camaraderie here and there.
Yep.
We'll see. A lot of that will be dependent on the Bills' defense, which is, very hit or miss. They weren't the most physical last year, but,
No,
neither one of
beat up against the Bengals in the playoffs.
Neither one of these teams were big preseason performers. It's not like they're playing their guys a lot, so I expect them to be rusty. I expect it to be low scoring. I expect it to be more physical, which favors the Jets. It does, but Josh Allen's fully healthy. If he's going to be on the ground more, if he's going to be running more and putting his body out there, it's obviously makes it easier on the Bills. Then they can have the ability to blitz
Yeah.
Rodgers a little more if they're playing from ahead rather than playing from behind. But I think it'll be very similar to the
Hmm.
Thursday night game we saw, where it's just kind of rusty. Things are kind of off the mat, and it's you're gonna have to take advantage of the mistakes here and there. But it's just gonna be that typical opening night, this ugly kind of game.
Yes. Um. See, I think it's going to be more free flowing, but again, if you take anything from week one, Chiefs only put up 21. A lot of games in the low 20s, high teens. You really, other than the 49ers had over 30. The Rams managed to get to 30. The Cowboys did, Packers, Dolphins, Chargers. So that's like 6 out of the 30 teams that have played thus far that got to 30. So, or Jags did, so 7. But it's gonna be interesting to see when you only have a certain amount of teams, really about like 25-ish% of them getting there. So I'm interested to see this game. I'm eager to see Aaron Rodgers in this offense. Eager to see what the Bills do because this is the first time they really have since the iteration of Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, where they've really had kind of almost pushback on them in a sense. Because like last year, the Dolphins were interesting. The Jets were going to be something. The Patriots are always kind of be formidable. But really, this is the first time where they've gotten like they're not the quote unquote class of the division since Josh Allen and Diggs.
There's
So
gonna be
it's going to be interesting to see how they
there's gonna be
respond to
real
that.
pressure for the first time since 2020,
Yes.
2019, really. So yeah, real pressure.
Yeah, to win the division, yeah, for real pressure for that.
I can't wait. Definitely gonna be a Bills fan tonight. Fuck the Jets. Fuck the Jets. It's always fuck the Jets. So can't wait to see them lose tonight.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else you wanted to talk about at all?
No, that's really it with the NFL. I actually do have some FIBA and NBA thoughts, but we can get to that maybe Thursday. We can get to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, there's definitely some basketball talks that need to be had because what are we doing? And now LeBron wants to assemble the super team again. So,
In
like,
typical LeBron fashion, as LeBron would.
yeah, in LeBron fashion.
Uh,
Okay, I see we're not doing it, so let me put it on our back. I mean, I love it because the fact that we're going to get Steph and LeBron, I've wanted them to team up for. I wanted them to team up because I wanted to see a basket like stylistically, but I don't want it because they're the best rivalry we've had in some time.
I'll kind of
So
believe it when
that's
I
kind
see
of
it, just because I saw the report. It was like 8 players that confirmed. I'll
mm-hmm.
believe all that when I see it. I do think we'll have a talent influx. Like I could see Booker and Tatum maybe playing next year.
I do think Steph's going to do it because I think Steph did say he wanted to do one before he retired, and this would be the one to do. So I think you're going to see LeBron, and I think you're going to see Steph, and I think that alone will bring in
I
others.
think I think
So
Steph's more likely, but again, I'm still dubious. If we could see these guys doing deep playoff runs next year, uh, who the hell knows? Like we've heard LeBron say this about the dunk
yeah,
contest. That never happened. It's nice when you hear it in September. I'm not so sure if LeBron's playing in the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals. If he's going to want to go to France, 6 weeks after that. Training camp
yeah,
starting probably 2 weeks after that. What I
yeah. We'll see.
what I really wanted to bring up, Keenan, I've been wanting to bring this up the last 2 weeks. I think it's been about 2 weeks since his comments. Is it Noah Lyles? Is that the track star that made these comments? Where he said,
I think
this was
yeah, I think
unbelievable to
so.
me. All he said was, I don't know if you can call yourself the world champions when it's the National Basketball Association. It's basically the nuts and bolts of what he said. And the
Yeah.
NBA and Drake came out in
Yes.
swarms against this guy. And I'm like, there's been much more offensive things said about NBA players or things that were like shots at their dedication. Like all
Yeah.
the old heads constantly say, like, oh, these, you play 65 games, it doesn't seem like they're as dedicated. Like to me, that's much worse than him saying, like, can you really call yourself the world champions if you're playing against United States teams? And every NBA player was out. Like, I just couldn't believe they were that offended by it. I was like, is that really that offensive? And then
Why does it
and then they
matter?
come out and lose in the FIBA. Not only lose, they didn't even medal in the FIBA World Cup. So
that like it bolstered his point.
absolutely.
Like, I mean, I do think that if this year's Nuggets team beats any team overseas in a series of 7, the
Oh, sure,
NBA
of
is the
course.
best league
NBA
in the
is the
world.
best league in the world.
No,
But
I mean, no, I know what you're
nah,
saying. I'm just saying, like, they're the best team in the world because of the fact that, like, they won it that year. And I think if you were to put them in a circuit over there in a series, they would cook anybody. I know you're not arguing that, but you say those things and then you're in a world tournament and you don't even medal. That doesn't look good. It really just doesn't look good. And I hope that in the Olympics we bring out a lot of people and we have a great team because I would love to see it. I'd love to see it headlined by LeBron and Steph. That's what I would love. LeBron, if you got the best 12 in the league right now on a team, it would rival pretty much any team. For the most, you'd have to go through it to think. Just because of what if LeBron could be kind of what Magic was to that dream team, in the sense of just controlling offense and things like that, you've got Kevin Durant almost at the peak of his power, Steph pretty much there, Jason Tatum, Devin Booker, you've got so much talent. Anthony Davis, if he's healthy, there's so much talent there. You could compete that with a lot of these other teams that have obviously gone on. I'm not sure if I put it on Dream Team or Redeem Team level, but it's close. It is close. So, but all right, it's 8:08 and Heartbreak. Shout out Kanye. It's time for us to end this pod so we can go watch this amazing game that's about to ensue. So, Warner Brothas Podcast, thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. Follow us everywhere.
Subscribe, Warner Brothas Podcast, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube.
Yep.
Go ahead.
At all, anywhere, the Warner Brothas Podcast is where you're going to find us. And after that, we're all out.